Yeah, it is crazy. It's really fucking crazy. He's basically one sentence away from saying, I mean, you guys saw what I did, right? And you still voted for this? That doesn't make any sense.
John Oliver had been waiting for this moment. He sat at his desk, the studio lights gleaming, the audience locked in, waiting for him to do what he does best: tear Donald Trump apart with brutal, unrelenting precision. And when the moment came, he did not disappoint. Trump had just given one of the most bizarre, incoherent victory speeches in modern political history. Even as he spoke, he seemed as shocked as everyone else that he had actually won. Just a quick interjection. If you want to see back-to-back clips of John Oliver roasting Donald Trump, skip to the timestamp on Now's screen for some hilarious clips. Also, please consider subscribing. It costs you nothing but helps us massively. But now back to the video. Standing at the podium, fumbling over his words, he looked like a man who had just stumbled into a surprise party meant for someone else. He rambled about overcoming obstacles, achieving the impossible, and then, as if suddenly aware of his own reality, muttered, "Look what happened. Is this crazy?" Oliver, leaning forward slightly, smirked. "Yes, Donald, it is crazy. It's crazy that after everything you've done, after a failed coup, after being impeached twice, after being convicted of multiple crimes, you are somehow back here."
Yeah, it is crazy. It's really fucking crazy. He's basically one sentence away from saying, I mean, you guys saw what I did, right? And you still voted for this? That doesn't make any sense.
It's crazy that millions of people saw all of that and said, "Yep, this is my guy." The audience erupted in laughter, but Oliver wasn't just here to entertain. He was here to make a point. He played clips of Trump fumbling through his speech, visibly confused, as if he had just learned about his own victory in real time. Then, in a near-perfect imitation of Trump's strained delivery, Oliver quipped, "I mean, you guys saw what I did, right? And you still voted for me?" The reaction was instantaneous. Social media exploded. Clips of Oliver's takedown flooded Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. But while the internet laughed at Trump's ineptitude, Oliver knew the real issue was far more serious. Because this wasn't just about Trump's incompetence. It was about the disaster waiting to unfold.
There are lots of reasons this result is so depressing, from what it means for abortion rights, to the environment, to Ukraine, to Gaza, to the very fact Trump's campaign was built on demonization and revenge.
Oliver's smirk faded slightly as he shifted gears. This wasn't just another election. This was a catastrophe. Trump's victory meant a long list of dangers were now reality. Abortion rights? Gone. LGBTQ+ protections? Under attack. The environment? Sacrifice for corporate greed. Mass deportations? Already in the works. Democracy itself? Hanging by a thread. The show cut to a montage.
From the signs calling for mass deportation at the convention to the GOP spending at least $215 million just on anti-trans network TV ads.
Of Trump's most ominous campaign moments. Clips of him ranting about retribution, vowing to punish his enemies, and promising to take power like never before. Oliver let the silence sit for a moment before speaking. We laugh at him. We make memes about his weird dance moves and his misspelled Truth Social posts, and all of that is fun. But at some point, we need to recognize that this isn't just another bumbling politician. This is a man who is telling us, in plain language, that he intends to rule, not govern. Rule. The audience was silent now. Oliver's voice sharpened as he continued. This is a man whose entire political strategy is built on fear, division, and vengeance. He doesn't want to lead the country. He wants to punish it. And yet, despite all of this, millions of voters still believe Trump was the solution to their problems. One of the biggest talking points from Trump's supporters was that the economy was better under him. The claim had been repeated endlessly, even as economic data proved otherwise. Oliver tore this apart in seconds. "So let me get this straight," he began, flipping through a report on his desk. "Trump cut taxes for billionaires, let the cost of healthcare skyrocket, let wages stagnate, and yet somehow he's the working class hero." He then pulled up a chart showing the widening wealth gap under Trump's administration. "Here's what really happened," Oliver continued. "The ultra-rich made record profits, Corporations got tax breaks, and working-class Americans got the illusion of stability while the system was being rigged against them. The audience chuckled as Oliver mocked the absurdity of Trump's supporters still believing in him. It's like watching someone realize their credit card has been maxed out, then decide to go back to the exact same financial advisor who told them to invest all their money in Dogecoin. The laughter grew, but the message was clear. Trump's economic legacy was a scam, and millions had fallen for it. If Trump's return to power wasn't terrifying enough, his potential cabinet choices made things even worse. Oliver wasted no time ripping apart the lineup of sycophants and criminals lining up to serve in Trump's administration. There was Ken Paxton, a man still under federal investigation for bribery. There was Kash Patel, a full-blown conspiracy theorist who wrote children's books painting Trump as a literal king. And of course, there was Elon Musk, being floated as a potential budget director, despite his history of burning through billions and tanking Twitter in record time. Oliver's eyes widened as he stared at the camera. Elon Musk overseeing the federal budget? That's like putting a raccoon in charge of a fireworks stand. What could possibly go wrong? The audience lost it, but Oliver wasn't done.
When it wasn't just outright chaos, especially toward the end, when he was miming a blowjob on a microphone, dancing on stage for 40 minutes.
He then pulled up a clip of Trump at one of his recent rallies, ranting incoherently about immigrants. The speech had started as an attack on migrants, but somehow devolved into a critique of Hollywood actors being too weak to play criminals. Trump's entire argument here, Oliver deadpanned, is that Hollywood actors aren't muscular enough to commit crimes. I mean, what? The audience erupted into laughter. But again, Oliver made sure they didn't miss the real issue. This is the man we just put back in power. This is the man who will shape policies, appoint judges, and hold the nuclear codes. And yet, people are treating him like a weird uncle who just says silly things at Thanksgiving. The truth was, Trump wasn't a joke anymore. He was a serious, immediate threat. As Oliver wrapped up, he turned serious. We can joke about Trump all we want. We can laugh at his bizarre speeches, his weird obsessions, his inability to form a complete sentence. But at the end of the day, none of that matters, because he's still winning, and that is terrifying. He called on people to stay engaged, stay informed, and refuse to normalize Trump's behavior. We've seen this story before. We lived it for 4 years, and now we're about to live it again. Unless people wake up, unless people fight back. He stared at the camera for a moment before delivering his final blow. Because if we don't fight back, we already know exactly how this ends. The screen faded to black, and across the internet, Trump's supporters were absolutely seething. Oliver had humiliated Trump, destroyed his credibility, and called out the terrifying reality of what was coming next. And now it was up to the people to decide. Would they fight back? Or would they, once again, let Trump get away with FUD? The audience sat in silence as John Oliver let his final words hang in the air. The weight of the moment was palpable. This wasn't just another comedic takedown of Trump. This was a full-scale call to arms. Across social media, the clip of Oliver's monologue began spreading like wildfire. Within hours, Twitter was ablaze, YouTube was flooded with reactions, and even mainstream news outlets were picking up on the segment. The response was instantaneous and explosive. Trump's supporters were furious. Trump's critics were electrified. And Trump himself, silent. For a man who had spent the last decade lashing out at any and all criticism, Trump's failure to respond spoke volumes. But the silence didn't last. It didn't take long for Trump's loyalists to come crawling out of the woodwork, desperate to contain the damage. Right-wing commentators went into full-blown damage control mode, flooding their shows with rage-fueled rants about how John Oliver is just another leftist hack, or the mainstream media is trying to cancel Trump again. Fox News hosts scrambled to reframe the situation, desperately trying to convince their audience that Oliver's words were nothing more than liberal fear-mongering. They waved their hands, dismissed the facts, and tried to spin the segment as Trump derangement syndrome in action. But there was one huge problem. Nothing Oliver said was untrue, and deep down, they all knew it. For all the fake outrage, all the dramatic monologues about woke Hollywood elites, none of them could actually refute the facts Oliver laid out. Trump had been impeached twice. He had incited an insurrection. He had been convicted of multiple crimes. He had openly talked about seizing power and punishing his enemies. They weren't fighting against Oliver. They were fighting against reality itself. Behind the scenes, Trump's advisors were scrambling. They had seen media takedowns before, but this one was different. This wasn't just another, haha, Trump is dumb segment. This was an undeniable, fact-based, deeply cutting exposure of everything wrong with Trump's return to power. And worst of all, it was resonating with people. According to leaked reports, Trump's team immediately began working on a counter-narrative. They planned to attack Oliver personally, dredge up old comments, and even manufacture fake scandals to try and discredit him. But Trump himself, he was fuming. Insiders claimed he raged for hours, demanding to know why no one is stopping this John Oliver guy. He was furious that his supporters weren't louder, that his allies weren't fighting back hard enough, that his usual smoke and mirrors routine wasn't working. Do something about this, he reportedly shouted at his staff. But what could they do? Because unlike his usual targets, politicians, celebrities, media executives, John Oliver wasn't afraid of Trump. In fact, he thrived on taking him down. If Trump's team had been hoping to bury the story, they had badly miscalculated, because Oliver's monologue had already taken on a life of its own. #Trump humiliated began trending worldwide. Memes flooded every corner of the internet. Clips of Trump's "look what happened" is this crazy speech were being remixed, auto-tuned, and turned into parodies. One user on X tweeted, "John Oliver just did more damage to Trump in 10 minutes than the entire Democratic Party did in 4 years." Another wrote, "If you're mad at Oliver for telling the truth, you should probably take a second to ask yourself why it bothers you so much." Even people who weren't politically engaged found themselves drawn in by the spectacle. It wasn't just about Trump being a bad president. It was about the sheer absurdity of how people kept falling for the same con over and over again. Oliver had made it impossible to ignore, and that's what made the difference. After nearly a full day of silence, Trump finally took to Truth Social to respond. And in typical Trump fashion, it could not have gone worse. His first post read, "John Oliver is just another radical left fake news hack. No talent, no ratings. I'm winning bigly and they can't stand it. Sad." Minutes later, another post followed. "Nobody watches Loser Oliver. Just another failed comedian trying to stay relevant by lying about your favorite president, me." The response, even worse for him. Within moments, people began mocking the post, calling it a full-on meltdown. Memes of Trump furiously typing on his phone while sweating flooded the internet. The phrase, "your favorite president, me," became an instant meme. Oliver, of course, saw it. On the very next episode, he put Trump's response on the screen and simply stared at it. For a full 10 seconds, he said nothing, just letting the absurdity speak for itself. Then, in a calm voice, he said, "This man has nuclear codes." The audience howled with laughter, and Trump's humiliation was officially complete. John Oliver didn't just embarrass Donald Trump. He didn't just mock him or make fun of his speech patterns. He exposed him. For all the bluster, all the propaganda, all the cult-like devotion from his followers, Trump is still the same incoherent, unhinged, incompetent fraud he's always been. And this time, people were watching closely. For Trump, this wasn't just another comedic roast. This was a disaster. His team panicked, his supporters couldn't fight back, and his own response only made things worse. And now the question remains, will this be the moment that finally wakes people up? Or will America once again let Trump get away with it? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, John Oliver just delivered a takedown that Trump will never, ever forget. Now enjoy a full 2 minutes of John Oliver just ripping into Donald Trump. If you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, please like and subscribe. Enjoy.
Now he's basically saying there, let's use Guantanamo Bay like hell's waiting room. And that is problematic for 2 reasons. First, it's arguably unconstitutional. And second, hell's waiting room is already the slogan of Henry Kissinger's bedroom. That's a fact. That's just a fact. Basically, we bombed the shit out of their countries to thwart the spread of communism, sometimes in secret wars to fulfill Henry Kissinger's napalm kink. And then, once we took those refugees in, we didn't really do much to set them up for success. Champagne is acceptable on New Year's, Valentine's, birthdays, and if and when Henry Kissinger dies, and that's it. That is it. That is the full list.
The bitch just won't quit, will he?
Don't worry, it's not a question of if, but when.
I hope Henry Kissinger dies soon.
Oh, me too, Mickey.
As a citizen of the United States, you are part of the most violent, genocidal, imperialistic empire the world has ever known. Your silence is complicity.
Yeah, he's right. He's just completely right. And agreeing with a staunch Republican Georgia state rep wasn't something I had on my 2023 bingo card. I've almost got a full bingo, by the way. I'm just waiting on you-know-who to you-know-what.